It's time for the big conversations, telling stories of movers and shakers, of industry giants and daring professionals. It's time for the conversations that change your perspective on life, the kind of conversations that shape entrepreneurs and move careers forward. If you don't know where these conversations are found, we are sending you a GPS. But if you're listening to this voice right now, you are here. Welcome to the Growth Podcast. This is the GPS.
Welcome to the Growth Podcast. My name is Janice Matui and I'm from A Seat at the Table. Wondering what I'm doing here? We are doing a takeover this week. And I'm very honored to have an amazing guest and a friend, Yangeni, an expert and thought leader in the HR community in Zambia. Welcome.
Thank you so much. This is really honoring to be here, especially being interviewed by you while it's doing the takeover. I'm excited to be one of the first people to participate in this.
Thank you so much. I think one of the things that was really exciting for me is to be able to, you and I have had many conversations in the past, but never recorded conversations.
Exactly.
And I thought, what better time than to have somebody like you to share your expertise. I always enjoy our chat. So today we're going to start with the tradition that is on the Growth Podcast, and that's to pick cards. So you will pick 3 cards.
Okay.
And you will answer the questions on that card. And
no skipping of questions?
No skipping.
Just okay, then I'll just go for the first 3 then.
Okay. Yes.
1, 2, and 3.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I can proceed?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. I'm a yellow, so I'll go with yellow.
Yeah.
Great. What's the best mistake you've ever made and why? This is interesting. I don't think so you can call your mistake as the best. So I will change this. What's the worst mistake that I've made and why? I think not to think too much. I think it's maybe over-trusting people.
Okay.
I think that's one thing that I regret doing because as a yellow, I use feelings a lot. Mm-hmm. I avoid to use logic too much. So sometimes I just say, I feel I can trust Janice. Mm-hmm. Now, because of that, it has costed me money. So that's the lesson number 1. Okay?
You would say it is kind of like the best mistake because it steers you into knowledge.
Absolutely.
So I guess so.
Okay.
Next question.
Next one. Red or blue? Let me try blue. Okay. What controversial opinions do you enjoy sharing with others? Okay, this is very interesting. I have a number of things that are controversial that I share, but I'll be very honest. I avoid to share controversial opinions openly unless I'm in a safer space because I've always been told once your words are out, you can never retract them. So because of that, I'm very conscious on what opinions that I share. But let me think of something. There's something that I always believe that knowledge can only be obtained from experts, okay? Or people that have invested themselves in that. However, we see a trend, not only in Zambia, basically I've seen this even across, that everybody wants to be a mentor or an expert in something. So my controversial opinion is that you cannot just share something on a topic that you're not conversant about. I think it's okay to say you do not have enough information about something and allow others to share. So for me, that's my controversial opinion. Others will say, no, you can still learn from anywhere. I think I will share more when we talk about reverse mentorship. Yeah. So but for me, you just can't learn from any person. You have to be selective.
I like that. Yeah. I do.
The last one is red. I hope it's something nice. Okay. What widely accepted beliefs that needs to be dead and buried? Okay. This is also, I would say this is controversial because I have two opinions on this. Mm-hmm. I think we all believe that knowledge is power. But for me, I believe knowledge is potential. Mm-hmm. Why am I saying so? Because I believe the ultimate power of knowledge lies in its application. Mm-hmm. So you can come for work. If you've not delivered anything, that is nothing. So for me, Knowledge is not power, but it's potential. And its ultimate use is what makes it powerful. That is something that I believe in.
Absolutely agree with you. That is amazing, Yangeni. So today our chat, I want to focus on, redesigning future workplaces. And I know you've done a lot of work there. If you don't follow Yangeni, please do follow him on LinkedIn. He has amazing knowledge about the Employment Act in Zambia, and of course other places as well. Sure. So today I just want to focus on future workplaces.
Absolutely. The
conversations are happening. We know globally there has been work from home versus not work from home. There is using collaborative virtual tools for productivity. Are those conversations happening in Zambia, and are we having them enough if they are?
Okay, very interesting conversation here. The question whether these are happening in Zambia or not. I'll tell you that with the coming of COVID-19, whether you want it to happen or not, it was happening. And from that, I think most of our organizations have gone ahead and, adopted some of these tools and having these conversations. But coming to your question, I think if we see today's workforce, I would like even just to state that we can no longer talk about the future, like the future of workplace. We're saying it's the now. Because look at it in this way. We thought you cannot have a meeting online. I never ever imagined that I can interview somebody who's not in the same room. But these things are happening. So we'll say they are happening and it is here. But now if we look at what is happening, is Zambia at par with other countries? Okay, maybe that's a conversation for another day, especially in the HR space. But I'm more interested in just understanding now our workforce as, I don't want to use the word evaded, but we have a lot of multi-generational workforce now. And that is having a toll on both the young and the old. And it brings things like you mentioned earlier about ageism and other things. So now for me, if you ask me, our workforce, how are we managing it today with its diverse multi-generational workforce as well as the mental health element of it? So I would say as an HR practitioner in Zambia, I think our scope has really increased. From what people used to think of us as just giving you basic leave days, processing of your payroll, and managing of your medicals, your insurance. Now I think the scope is beyond, especially with having a lot of multi-generational workforce. Maybe that's a conversation we should have today. How can we better utilize these different generations in a workplace?
Fantastic. And I'm happy you've spoken about ageism because obviously we know that it's the first time ever that all generations are working together.
Absolutely.
I know that I've seen, and just for those of you that are watching, what is ageism? Ageism is basically limiting jobs to certain ages.
Absolutely.
Right? And so once, and it's bias that is formed based on age. And one thing that I have seen a couple of adverts say we're looking for a female
or a male
under the age of 30. Is that legal? And what is your thought on ageism?
Okay, so ageism is something that has been there, by the way, for a long time. But now I think it's become predominant in the sense that, like you mentioned, we now have a number of generations within the workplace. For those that are listening, what are some of these generations? We've got the Gen Z, we've got the Gen X, we also have the baby boomers around. And the millennials. So you see that we have about 5 generations around the workplace. And ageism affects both. The young and the old are both affected. The old, people have biases against them. I've heard certain things like, no, they're not tech savvy. No, these people are rigid. No, you cannot send him for training because he will soon be retiring. So these are biases and stereotypes that to be associated to such an age. And for the young, of course, I've heard things like, no, the millennials are not committed. know they are entitled, know they can't just deliver. And when you use these biases in a workplace, you are increasing the mental anxiety in the people and also affecting their mental capabilities. Imagine if you are sending people for a training in South Africa and I'm 55 and you tell me, no, I can't go there because I'll soon be retiring. And I see a young individual who just started work, you send them for this training because back of your mind, you are saying, oh, this person is bound to be with us for a number of years. You have indirectly discriminated me. Now, the question that you asked, I was trying to avoid it. Is it legal to specify an age group in terms of on the adverts and the likes? I think our law is very clear. Thou shalt not discriminate against the race, age, religion, and anything. But you and I should agree one thing. Behind the scenes, as employers, there's certain jobs which are best suited for a certain age group and a certain gender. As much as we would love to say all females, all males are equal, but if we have underground work, that requires a lot of hours underground. Again, HRs we are advised, if I have a breastfeeding mother or I have more females, I should avoid putting them in positions where they can be disadvantaged. Okay? So if you look at all these things, behind the scene, I would say there's silent discrimination. Okay? Because even if you say you want a front desk, we talk about it. 99% of front desk officers or receptionists or even hair hostess are what?
Female.
They're female.
Yeah.
So there is an indirect discrimination, but it supports the nature of the work. I've seen some makeup artists. We have a problem in Zambia. Most of makeup artists are what? Are female. So whenever we see a male venturing into that industry, all of us will start questioning, is he okay? Some will even accuse them is not normal. So that's why I'm saying these discrimination things are there in the background, but it's just that now I think with different generations working together, we are seeing them predominantly.
So in terms of, when we look at ageism and you talk about discriminatory practices, right? We know that those now are the foundation of mental health,
anxiety,
and anxiety, mental health disorders.
Yeah.
So you have disorders such as anxiety, you have, bullying in the workplace, for instance, is a major cause of anxiety and depression. And I don't think it's being spoken about enough because you tend to sit in informal settings and people are saying, look, I hate my job.
Yeah.
I can't believe that I have to go back and I have to. How do leaders begin to safeguard? Because we are safeguards, right?
Absolutely.
We're there to create psychological safety for our teams to perform.
Yeah.
How do leaders now create safeguards
To that.
for people and maintain mental wellness in the workplace?
I like that conversation, Janice, and I think you are hitting on the right conversation. If you see, we have two types of contracts. We have the actual written contract and the psychological contract. Okay. So in the actual written contract, we all know about it. Expectations are written there. Yangeni, you report for work at this time and knock off here. But we have a psychological contract, which is unwritten contract. And in this psychological contract, there is an expectation from the employee that by the virtue of me providing my service to you, certain things will be taken care of. Vis-a-vis, the employer also has expectations that by the virtue of you coming through, you will produce to the best of your ability. But now, if you look at elements such as bullying, for instance, and some people don't realize, especially leaders. I saw a post the other day on my wall. Somebody was saying, is it okay? Because I was talking about what are some of the words that you have heard at the workplace that you feel are not right? That the supervisor was saying, are these minions? I don't know what they meant, actually. Are these minions around? Or are these small people? I say, in a workplace, provided somebody has been given a contract.
It's a derogatory term.
Absolutely. You can never use any word rather than sir, madam, or you address them by their names. So you find that some of our leaders, the words that they use, they may not even know that they're actually bullying individuals. And you find that somebody, Yangeni, likes suits, for instance, or Janice will like certain colors. Then they even name you by that. Yellow, oh, that one who always dresses yellow. Are they?
Yeah.
So we are saying bullying, I think, is something that needs to be addressed, and the tone at the top determines how everybody behaves in the company. And I think for me, like I said, policies can be there. We can have a policy against discrimination, but the reality is it is those conversations that people are having when they're having coffee, okay? It's those conversations people are having when you're in the boardroom, when you just see a sudden people are making certain comments. So I feel there is a lot of work that we leaders are entrusted to do, especially in creating harmonious workforces. There's a word that you used, and I think I need to talk about it. I've often heard when it's Friday, everybody's very happy.
Yes.
Okay, you're
Yeah.
looking
Friday in
forward.
Jakarta.
Yes. Then Sunday, I start seeing posts like,
quite
I have to
depressive.
go back to this noted and thanks. Like, I'm asking myself, do you know the unemployment levels in this country? Okay? How many people are looking for a job? Then if you have one, you start posting like that on a Friday, on a Sunday. And when you come on a Monday, you're like, I'm just here physically, but mentally I'm not here. So now I'm asking myself, are our organizations so toxic that our employees are looking forward to be at home than to be at work? Maybe this is a question that we need to send as a challenge to
Yes,
the leaders.
absolutely.
Because for me, I see sad boss that every time it's like there's a fight between the employer and the employee. So for me, I believe we have a huge duty as leaders to create happy working. The way you feel good to go for it. I'm assuming you do feel good. I do enjoy. If you see me, I'm in my office.
Yeah.
I'll be making my coffee there. I'll always take a picture in my office. I want another person to feel the same.
Yeah, motivated.
Be motivated
Yeah.
and be at work. And for me, the challenge I'm giving to somebody listening is that you don't have to wait until you be in the C-suite for you to be happy.
Yeah.
You can enjoy your work even at any
Even
position.
at any level,
At
true.
any, if you are a cleaner, ensure your floors are so clean that everybody notices what you're doing. But it's a situation where people just assume that unless I start driving that car Janice drives, or unless I go in that office, that's when I'll be happy. Now, for now until then, I have to be a sad employee.
Yeah.
Then we'll never have happy employees ever.
This will take me to my next question,
Yeah.
right? I recently was having a conversation with my coach, and she recommended I read a book. I've forgotten the title, but the book is about if you don't do politics, politics will take you over, right?
Yeah.
So corporate politics, we know it's there.
Yeah, we can't avoid it.
It's the pecking order.
Yeah.
It's like you're saying, there is the unspoken silence. There's unspoken, culture that is embedded in
within an
organizations.
organization.
When you join an organization, you're told, here we don't say this.
Exactly.
Right.
You just can't come dressed up in a suit every day.
As an HR expert,
Yeah.
what is your opinion of corporate politics, and how can what advice can you give someone to help them navigate it without it being a career limiting?
Absolutely. I think I wish I came with my book. I've covered that in my book, The Effects of Office Politics.
Yeah.
I always say that today's working environment is a battlefield.
Yeah.
If you're not careful. I'll give you a practical example. I have not spoken about this. A few years ago, in my one of my jobs, I was having an open conversation with a colleague. Little did I know they were recording me.
No.
And they were asking me on a serious opinion, what do you think we should do as an organization to do? And I was very blunt. I said, for us, for succession and for continuity, we needed to do A and B and C. But provided that the current system does not support this, there's little we can do. I gave my opinion freely. This gentleman got this opinion and gave it to the
What a
owner of the
betrayal of
company.
trust.
It's a betrayal of trust. So now you can imagine having experienced that firsthand in terms of office politics, what it has made me become now. One, I've learned that regardless of where you are, you need to limit on who you trust. Somebody will tell me, Yangeni, how do you combine? Because at workplace, we need to trust each other for work to flourish, right? But I would say trust people with all work-related matters, but nothing to do with your personal life or certain opinions that you may have genuinely about your organization, because you never know where and how this information can be used against you.
Oh my goodness.
So the corporate politics are real, but for the beginners, let's say those who are just coming in, I would say always know what you want and avoid conversation. Usually these come from informal conversations. But if you're just dedicated, you come to do your job, you got to do your things, I think you avoid. And always avoid harding comments. You know, there's some people that, you just tell me, do you know Janice was with Yangeni for dinner? Oh, tell me about it. Oh, do you know they were even together? Oh, tell me about it. So don't be the conduit, okay? When somebody tells you, just say, it's none of my business, doesn't concern me. Does it pay my bills? No. You see that these politics can be limited, but they are real, and I can't, as an HR, just ignore them, but I can sensitize people that avoid participating in office politics, because they're only nice if it's not about you.
Yeah.
But if it's about you, some people have even committed suicide.
Oh dear,
Yeah.
that's really sad. Now coming to one of everyone's favorite topics, pay transparency.
Absolutely.
I saw a conversation online, I think a few weeks ago, and people were saying, why don't you HR people put your, I think that was in your post.
Yes, I put, yeah. Why don't you put
the
salary?
The salary, because, you know, if you look at jobs like on Monster.com in the UK, Indeed, there's a range.
Absolutely.
So they will tell you. And I saw a number of people. It was quite a heated conversation.
Absolutely. Up to now, I can see a lot of comments around that.
What is your view on pay transparency, and what do you think is the best way to navigate
Around
job advertisements? Because they say the salary is competitive, but competing against
what? Okay. For somebody who's just listening, what is pay transparency? This is when an organizations adopt a culture that they will be open and share the salary expectations prior to one joining. Okay, it could be they'll give you a range, or they'll give you within a bracket. You can only earn up to this much. These are professional and international standards, because they help institutions to make sure that you attract talent out there, and also you retain talent. Because if I know that I'm getting an X amount, and I also look through the window, I see another organization, a competing organization, they're also offering an X amount, I'll be able to weigh and know that I'm okay where I am. Now, without knowing what Janice is getting, and I'm doing the same job, sometimes you end up applying and sending applications anywhere, even to places where you're earning 4 or 5 times better than them, because you're not aware of what is happening. But the question that you are asking is, how we as a nation mature enough to adopt pay transparency and put in the advertisement? It's a yes or no. Why? I think I did mention earlier on that the levels of unemployment in this country are quite high, meaning a lot of people are not working. And in an economy, or in a situation where you have a lot of people who are not working, you find that the employers have a bigger voice when setting the salaries, right? Because they have a lot of talent where they can poach from. In an economy where you have scarcity in terms of manpower, and that's why you even agree with me, for those jobs where talent is scarce, they will put a salary range so that they're able to attract talent. But let's assume today, if I need a general worker, and we know the minimum wage, I say, okay, we're looking, I think I'd put a crazy figure. I'd put 55,000 for a general worker. Whoever saw that advert, I think they didn't even see that it was a conversation, not an advert. My emails were flooded because people thought now a general worker is earning as high as 55,000. So these are the problems that now employers will have when they openly put these figures around there. But the big catch is the maturity in the economy.
Okay.
Yeah, that plays a critical role. Let's just be real, Janice. You know the minimum wage in our country for a domestic worker, it's 1,300 kwacha. Put it to dollar terms, that's $42.
Well, I've
Okay.
never really done that, actually.
Exactly. So now I've worked on payrolls where I'm paying executives $20,000, $30,000. Now, against another general worker who's getting $100. $100 is equivalent to probably about, are we talking about 2,800? About 2,800, and which is a shop worker wage. So now, here is a shop worker who sees an advert that it's 2,800, and I get an advert for a CEO or for a director in some place who's going to get $25,000, let's say 600,000. This guy will keep asking himself, even if he puts his 2,800 into that 600,000, he's going to work his entire life and all the generations work for them to earn that 600. So now, if you see these discrepancies that we have in this economy, it therefore does
Pay
not suit.
inequalities, yeah.
It does not suit for us to have that. But one way or the other, if we adopted the issue of pay, I think in the government it's very open. They always put salaries for ministers and the president. Last time I checked, they were saying a president earns like 47,000, ministers about 27,000, and they'll put those figures like that. It's easier because that is the government. But in the private sector, the earning powers are very different. You can be a CEO. I've got my brother who runs a company, is an MD there, and I've got an MD from an ex-company. In the pay structure, somebody would just think because you're an MD, you'll be on 200,000. But there's an MD somewhere in a company who's earning 15,000.
Yep.
So, let's say if I'm a startup, I run my own organization and I'm a CEO. Probably I'm earning a 5,000 or 10,000, but I'm called Chief Executive Officer. So because of these discrepancies we have, until we reach a point when the economy is mature enough that if you saw a figure, a range of they're paying 800 to 1 million per annum, it shouldn't move you. But now I see when people, you just put a figure, I see especially USA-based jobs, and even the South African jobs, whenever they put a salary, everybody just wants to see. And there's a lot of people wanting to know how much another person gets. That's where the problem is. So it's really, I would say we're not yet mature to that level. Maybe if I ask you, Janice, let's just assume your lowest staff in your organization, they should know how much you're getting. Do you think they'll be motivated to work? Because they'll be thinking,
That's another conversation for another day. I mean, obviously there's a lot of schools of thought
around it,
and that's why we have ESG, which is around the governance issue.
Absolutely.
CEOs, especially of the Fortune 500 companies, were paying themselves huge salaries.
Yeah.
So I think, I hear you. We're not yet mature.
to that.
But I think the maturity would come if there's kind of fairness in pay.
that. No,
because
absolutely.
You will find that, there was research that was shared that women get paid less.
Yeah.
So for the same position with a colleague, she's in the same position, but she gets paid less. So, so
maybe on terms of pay fairness, what I would encourage HRs to do mostly is, before we advertise, we always have a budget for the job.
Yeah.
I think this is where also I've seen people making mistakes. Assuming I'm advertising a job and the budget is 60,000, and I go on the market, I find a guy who has not been working for the last 2-3 years and is willing to take anything. And that's why I tell people, never walk in an interview and say, what's your salary expectation? Anything. No. That's where the mistake comes in. Now, for me, I want the employers to be fair there, because this guy has no idea of what we pay. and he's not been working for 2 years. So you are thinking you are having a budget saving, but you're not being fair because it's against your pay policy. So if you say an entry manager will get a next figure, stick to it. Even if somebody says, no, only give me anything you want to give me. Do not be attracted to give, because some people, like I'm saying, if you're not working and a job comes by, you're so afraid to lose it. All you want is a job at that stage. You're not even thinking about a salary, and an employer takes advantage of that. So to my fellow HRers, let us stick to what is on the budget than to avoid, because a person has given a lower figure, we even reduce it further. Now we are being unfair to the system. Yeah.
Finally, Yangeni, if you had to write an employment policy or act, I think an act, because that's the law.
Yeah.
What are the 5 things you would put in there?
Okay, that's very interesting. I've never thought about it in those way. Let me see. But I think one of them is issues to do with fairness. Okay. Yeah, when we are recruiting, because I've seen that we do sometimes as HRs discriminate people. I have seen some people, they will hire a beautiful looking person against a person who they will assume is not beautiful. Okay, I think that. So now if we have a standard in terms of fairness on how to treat, and it shouldn't just be a policy like they always just say, here we don't discriminate on age or anything. It should really be lived and followed. That's one. The second one, of course, it should be attached to the eco pay for the eco job being done. I think I do agree with you. You find that a female CEO will be paid slightly less than the other one. And even the young, I've heard somebody once told me, Ufuna, why do you want all this money? You're not even married. Whether somebody is married or not, give them the salary that they deserve. Absolutely. So I hear somebody ask you, do you have children? Are you married? Do you have a wife? I said, why are you asking those questions?
Would you ask that because one of the things that I tend not to ask is how many, are you married? Because we wouldn't ask that of a male interviewee.
That's it.
But we ask women all the time, are you married? How many kids?
Because you want to see, will they be available all the time? So for me, I would say those are things that I would like to cover in there. But there's one critical one, and I would love to just share quickly on it. Issues to do with disability. I think in this country, I feel bad also because that's happened to me. I'm doing an interview online, and now I invite people to come to the office, especially previously where I was working. We had stairs getting up. I think even your offices still have stairs that side.
Yeah.
And this person came with a wheelchair. And I had never thought about it in my entire life that when I'm recruiting, I can actually recruit other people who are gifted differently or who cannot walk the way I walk. And so for me, I feel such laws needs to be stressed because let's even assume here, I did a book. I put it in audio. I put it in written, but I didn't think about the blind.
Yeah, Braille. Yeah.
Okay, so these are things that I feel we need to stress because they have an effect. And our ZRA practice notes have an incentive for employers who employ disabled people. In terms of your pay as you earn, you have a tax benefit around that. So there are even benefits trying to help people just to motivate and encourage this. So for me, these are the things that I'll be looking at if I was to write policies or an act that covers that. Okay? 5. I think 5 will be too much. Okay, let me give you 3 for today.